out there and create some more leaders. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see some of you younger guys that'll be able to come up here as well and get this wonderful medal. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Small College Basketball Podcast, celebrating the players, the programs, the coaches, and the history of small college basketball. We need to thank Visit Central Florida for their support of the Small College Basketball Podcast and the Small College Basketball Hall of Fame Classic. Start planning your Central Florida vacation now at visitcentralflorida.com. Again, visitcentralflorida.com. As a reminder, you can listen to all of our podcast episodes on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're a returning listener, please leave us a nice review. Leave us a 5-star rating. The video edition of the podcast is available on the Small College Basketball YouTube channel. You can find links to all things small college basketball at smallcollegebasketball.com and in our show notes. If you haven't heard, the Small College Basketball Podcast was recently named to the top 10 college basketball podcasts in the country by FeedSpot. So thank you to our audience and the coaches and the players who join us. To see the full list of the top 30 college basketball podcasts, please click the link for FeedSpot in our show notes. Now that that's done, Happy New Year and welcome to today's episode of the Small College Basketball Podcast. Last episode, we focused on NCAA Division III. Today, we're going to transition to two of the brightest in college basketball from NCAA Division II. We're going to kick it off with Coach Jim Crutchfield, the head coach of the number 1 ranked Nova Southeastern University. Coach, first of all, I love that I'm freezing up here in upstate New York, and we created this interview around your tennis schedule in South Florida. So first of all, I appreciate you taking some time out of the sunshine and joining us here on the podcast.
You mean that you have cold weather up there? You're not playing pickleball and tennis outside like we are down here in South Florida.
Oh, I wish.
Glad to be here with you, Chris.
So you've had a tremendous run, first at West Liberty and now at Nova Southeastern. You entered this year as the preseason number 2 team in the country. And with all of that success that you've had, winning the 2023 National Championship, runner-up last year, how do you continue to create such high expectations every season inside of your program?
Well, I'm not trying to create the high expectations. I'm just living with those right now. Unfortunately, sometimes it comes with winning basketball games. Expectations, they are high. You know, as I walked out of the arena last night after our game with Tampa University, they announced that it was our 70th consecutive win at home. And it almost, I could feel the pressure coming from that, you know, when I heard that. But, you know, you have 3 or 4 game win streaks or 5 or 6 game win streaks. I can't even describe how it's happened. It's really is hard to define. You know, I think you're focused on keeping your nose to the grind about today, what we're going to do today to try to win the next game against Eckerd on the road. And you don't worry about those kind of expectations. You just worry about the next day. You worry about today and the next game.
And so you're not worried about expectations. You're managing the expectations. Let's change it. How do you set such a high standard every day?
You know, we sit down every single day and think, what can we do today to help us win the next basketball game? And in doing so, we try to think of things that we can do in practice that might actually be fun to go with it. You know, I like the fact that our players, they laugh every day and they have some enjoyment through competition every day. We don't want to make it a grind. But, you know, outside of that, I think my expectations of our players are very high. You know, we talk a lot about what you're really capable of doing. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, we tend to function way below that bar of what we're capable of doing. And we try to figure out a way to show them what they're capable of doing. We time drills. We do things saying you can get to this point in this amount of time. And then in the game tape say, wait a second, it took you 5 seconds to do that, you know, and we got you on the tape measure and you can do it in 3.2. We expect you to do it in 3.2. But, you know, we show plays of guys, the extra effort type thing, and say that's what's expected of you every day, to the point where maybe their bar of how they function goes a little higher. No one ever functions at 100%. You know, that's, you know, we say that to people sometimes, or players, like, man, you gave 100% or 110%, which 110 is impossible. 100% is actually impossible, because I could always find something that you didn't do right. Your fingers weren't pointing in the right directions. Your hands weren't up. No one plays a perfect game. So, you know, again, I've said, man, you guys, I was really proud of the way you played. You gave like 87% today. Man, I'm so proud of you guys. They're like, what? Coach, come on. I've been told I've given 110. I said, well, you haven't been given 110. There's room to get better. You can play harder. So we set that bar of expectations high, like it's the norm, you know, and we give it to our players so they understand, yeah, you're right. There is more I can do, whether it's how I offensive rebound or how I cut off a screen. I can cut harder. And you try to make it the norm, and then all of a sudden you start functioning where that thing about the whole is greater than the individual parts. So, you know, as they say, it's a process. It's a long, involved process.
Yeah, and you've got a terrific process that we'll talk about a little bit later in the episode. As you set the standard and as you show film, I'm glad you talked about what you're trying to do every day in that meeting for practice, because you've got Nick Smith with you and you've got RJ Sunahara with you, two terrific players, very decorated in their own right. How do they contribute to setting that standard for the players, and then how do they contribute to your success as the head coach?
You know, if you look at, you know, the people that I've hired as assistant coaches to work with me and with the players, they've come out of the system. And you know, we've got like a cult going on here now, you know. And, you know, from Nick Smith and RJ Sunahara are guys that played in this system and they believe in it. And I think you can sell things better if in your heart you really believe that's how you should play the game. And, you know, you go back to whether it's, you know, Jordan Fee or Ben Hallett or Mike Lamberti or Eric Bavard or Devin Hone, all these guys that have played in this system and are now head coaches at the Division II level, they're all pushing the same type of game, and they're having success at it too. They're putting not just points on the board, but they're winning basketball games. So, you know, when I have guys like Nick and RJ beside me, I know they're not just selling what I believe, they're selling what they believe too. And it's usually a little bit more believable by the players.
Absolutely. And that must help you to fight complacency. I mean, we were talking before we started on your winning streaks, and obviously you've got a game tipping off later against Eckerd College. How do you fight complacency? What's your message to the players? And I want to hear how the players respond as well.
That's not easy. Yeah, I mean, and you know, it's a word you use it, complacency, but it's about, you think you're playing hard, but you're really not giving it up even close to that 100%. You're not giving the 87, you're giving the 71. And you got, I can feel that. I can feel it. And, you know, I have to push that envelope. And probably, I think the one thing that probably works for me, and I realized this last night in a game, I very rarely am mad at players or get on players or push them when I'm not happy, because I'm usually happy almost all the time. I'm happy with their effort, and I never get mad at players for making a bad pass. You know, we'll correct those. But when it comes to attitude and effort, occasionally I do get unhappy. And it's so rare that I think it's effective when I do. You know, if I was the kind of, you know, you kind of have to go with your personality. And I'm way better when I'm working in harmony with players, as opposed to being the type of coach who motivates players by being angry and yelling at them, which works for some people, and that's worked for Bobby Knight. But I think the few times that I do step in and say, "You're not playing hard enough," it actually carries some weight because it doesn't come very often from me. So that's kind of when I see what you call complacency, and all of a sudden we're not playing it's whatever percentage of the max, and I step in and say something. I think our players, and I appreciate this, I think they listen to me and they say, if he says I can play harder, then I can play harder. And they usually go out with a little more effort.
Absolutely. I think, the less is more sometimes with that complacency line and trying to get your point across about what the expectation is and then when to get your point across too. So you've got a great roster assembled after this offseason. And I want to start with, your heartbeat, Dallas Graziani, back at Nova Southeastern after a year away. What did his return mean to you and the program?
And again, when you talk about pushing players to play harder every day, guys like Dallas Graziani do my job for me because it's natural for him. He only plays at one pace. He plays really hard all the time. He has a high energy. He wants to win every drill and everything we do in practice every day. And I don't have to push that envelope very much because he brings it to the table. And no one wants to be beat every day by someone. And, in today's world, when someone beats you, they generally tell you about it.
Right. That's true.
You know how that works. And, we have a rule here. It's about trash talking. I'm definitely old school, not into the trash talking. And it's like, okay, in practice with each other, we can trash talk all we want. It's kind of in good fun, but it gets on people's nerves. But we don't trash talk to other people, and we our opponents that we don't know, we don't do that. But in practice, we do. And it's not beyond Dallas or anybody else when they beat someone just to tell them about it. And it gets kind of irritating. And next thing you know, guys are trying to win. And I can just kind of sit back and say, my job is done. When we go at it in practice, guys really want to win. Dallas brings that to the table. He said, every day in practice, if there's competition, I'm winning. And he usually tells the other guys, I win all the time. And there's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to win all the time. So all of a sudden, the lever practice comes up. He brings that back to practice every day. We have had that since I've been here, whether it's Nick Smith, even RJ. These guys have that ability to practice hard every single day to get better and get mad at each other on the court and then walk out of the gym best friends. It amazes me how angry they get at each other on the court and are able to let it go. We're playing a system where you call your own fouls,
Yeah.
and that's a problem already. But it's amazing how mad they get at each other, but yet they don't let it come out of the basketball court. They walk out and they're best friends when they walk out of the gym. But, a long answer to your question about Dallas, he brings that intensity to the table every single day, making my job easier.
And you've got a terrific roster around him. We're talking about Dallas Graziani, played Division I last year at Samford. Now he's back with Nova Southeastern. And Dallas is averaging, 13 points per game. He's in your starting lineup, averaging the fewest points of everyone you start. You've got 5 guys right now that start and are averaging double figures, led by MJ Iraldi. 25 points per game. Obviously, you've got some talented dudes. So talk about your team. What do you like most about your team right now?
I think that we're hopefully just starting to develop that chemistry with each other. And in today's world, that's harder to put together because of the transfer portal and players are jumping from one team to the other. And I have a couple of new guys in the lineup. I've got guys that haven't played together for years and years. And, when I was at West Liberty, it was a different time. I had, I think, 3 transfers in 13 years at West Liberty. So I was grooming these guys together from 4 and 5 years. It's a little different story now. And I've got guys that they've played together, but not for 4 and 5 years. And we're trying to get guys to know each other really, really well. And I think, the best evidence of how important it is for your players to have that chemistry together Probably, I think, a Division II team which moved up to Division I this year. They changed their name from Northwest Missouri State to Drake, but they basically got the same lineup. And
Yep.
most importantly, they have the same great coach. He's an incredible coach, and he brought his team with him. And they're beating teams. I think they're probably undefeated right now, beating major D1s. And these are the same five guys. I mean, they lost 5 games last year as a Division II team, but they've also won about 120 games together. And the value of guys that know how to play together, I think, Drake University, along with an incredible coach like Coach McCollum, it shows the importance of how the 5-man unit together is. And we're trying to find that right now because my guys haven't played together for 120 games. They've only played together really for 12. What I'm lucky about is we got guys that are open to that. They want to be teammates with each other. They're not about each individual. So I'm off to a head start already when it comes to making a team that plays like a team, not 5 individuals.
And I want to follow up on that. You mentioned how much more challenging it is with the transfer portal. How do you identify, how do you evaluate maybe that feeling of teammanship, that teammate, putting your teammate first? Like, how do you go about that in recruiting? Because guys are in the portal, if you're on the outside looking in, they're in the portal because it's about them. That's what I think everyone associates the transfer portal is. They want it to be about themselves, but you've done a tremendous job along with your staff to identify guys that are going to buy into your system and your culture. What's the process like for you when it comes to recruiting, especially in the portal?
Being very careful
Yeah.
with it. And I have probably backed off of some players that we could have acquired here at Nova Southeastern who had some real talent. But I thought, I'm not sure that's going to be something that's going to work for us. And I always say there's going to be a little bit too much subtraction with the addition. And, if a player in the portal says to me, when I say, well, why us? Why would you want to come here? And they say, well, I think with your style of play, it can help me get to the next level. I'm like, well, wrong answer. I'm not looking at, we've had a ton of players here go on and play professionally at a lot of different places, but we're about winning basketball games. We're not worried about guys getting to the next level. That happens, naturally. So I'm very careful about bringing guys in. We've only brought a few, but the few we've brought in have been successful. This year, Ross Reeves, it came out of Chaminade University, but then again, Chaminade University is coached by a really good friend and my former assistant, Eric Bavard, who, in close ties with him, I was able to vet Ross as far as what kind of personality, what kind of person is he? And he is a very unselfish team guy, easy to get along with. He had followed our program for 4 years along with Coach Bavard, liked the way we played.
Probably like the weather, right?
And
Chaminade to South Florida is not too bad.
Yeah, he's covered. He's got it all covered now. But that was one. And, Tyler Eberhardt out of the University of Charleston, West Virginia, was a great team player there. And their coach left, so he went in the transfer portal, and I knew of him, and I know coached by Dwayne Osborne, the kind of player he would be. So I'm careful to bring in guys that may or may not put up huge numbers. You never know, but I think they're going to blend in and be quality players and be really good team players. So, the guys that we have not really. They haven't really seemed like they're trying to get individual accolades. They just want to be part of a good program. Maybe they want the sunshine. Maybe our student body is 71% female. I'm not really sure all the motives that go into it.
My goodness.
Yeah, but I think it has to do, a lot with, from my vantage point, these are guys I feel that the subtraction, there will be very little and the addition will be big. And occasionally you can find that rare guy that can come into a team and there is no subtraction. That's hard to find, especially if a guy's put a lot of points. You can say, how could he come in here? If he's averaging 25, then someone's going to average less. Now we're putting up a lot of points, so they all get scored a lot right now. But it comes to sharing the basket. If a guy has, if we're recruiting a guy who has been somewhere, and he's the type of guy who has his hands on the basketball 40% of the time, well, that's you're looking at causing issues. And
right.
Once Dallas Graziani, had talked about, I really want to come back and play at Nova Southeastern. I'm like, I would love to have Dallas back here. I like the way he plays, but also it kind of meant for me, Dallas is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He's our leader. He's our point guard. To bring in someone right now that needs the ball in their hands a ton would cause a problem with Dallas Graziani and our team chemistry right now. So it is like, when you talk about how we bring it in, you have to really kind of predict the future. What's going to happen when this guy comes? You can't just look at how good they are where they're at.
Yeah, you've done a terrific job recruiting. Obviously, the transfer portal's been good to you. You've been able to develop players from the Florida area as well. And your team, you just mentioned it, you're putting up a lot of points, 111 points per game. That leads the country. You're the top team in assist to turnover ratio. You're the top team in the nation in assists per game and field goal percentage per game. Scoring margin, you're winning by 28 points per game. And I think there's a few more. I want to be respectful of your time and get to the question. But, you've got so many players playing so many minutes. And for the listeners and the viewers who haven't seen you play, your offensive and defensive philosophies are different in what you achieve the end goal to be. I think you really value great shots, and you value taking care of the ball, and you value, forcing disruption defensively. But if you haven't seen your system, how do you describe it, like to a recruit or to a parent or maybe a coach that isn't familiar with you?
Well, the misconception that we're run and gun, is out there, and
Right.
we're not. And I've told people, I have never in my 20 plus years as a head coach ever said that we need to get a shot off quick, or we need to get the ball off of them quickly, whether they get a good shot or not. It's about us getting a high percentage shot with guys in rebounding position, and it's about us keeping them from scoring. And the numbers that we put up with points is a byproduct of that, obviously, our style that we do that. But I'm always shocked, like you say, 111. We cannot maintain that number. I don't know.
Right.
That's too high. But I've never talked about we need to score a lot of points. It's never been that. Of the stats you've brought up there, the two big ones are, one, you mentioned we're number one in the country in field goal percentage. That's key. That is key. And, that means we're getting pretty good shots because we've got decent shooters, but we're getting good looks. And the other stat is plus 28. We're winning games and we're outscoring our opponent. And that's what it's about. Whether we win a game 70-50 or 120-100, it doesn't really concern me. We're just trying to outscore our opponent. And the way we do it, because we pressure full court a lot, we attack quickly on the offensive end, it does seem to lend to high scoring. But our guys have never been told, push it down, take a quick shot. Sometimes I'm really happier when we actually work hard for a shot, put 25 seconds off the clock and get a shot late in the shot clock, because I feel like it wears them down. Sometimes I feel like we take a quick one that's not the one I want, and we've let the defense off the hook. Defenses love it when they don't have to play defenses. It's like, all of a sudden we come down, take a quick three with no rebounders, and we do the one and done. It always bothers me, one, because I don't like the shot maybe, but two, we didn't make them play any defense. That wear down factor, we're trying to wear, a body blow. There is no body blow. We let them off the hook. So, the misconception is about we're running gun. We take quick shots. Our pressure defense, there's a reason why teams don't play full court pressure. There is sometimes the price of doing business. The basket is exposed. We're not back in a pack line protecting the rim. We're all spread out. We have to work really hard to put pressure on people, but not give up too much on the other end. If you do, then the price of business becomes too much and you shouldn't be pressing. So there's a lot of hard work into pressing and playing good half-court defense and keeping teams from getting good shots. So it's way more fundamental, and it's way more about hard work than it looks fun. And I've never had a recruit, that sit across from me that said, "Coach, I'm more of a slow down type of guy." They all think, "Yeah, this is how I want to score a bunch of points." Until we start to actually say, "This is how you got to do it," then all of a sudden it's not as fun as it looked when you're in the stands watching it.
I'll say this, having been able to watch you live multiple times at the Hall of Fame Classic, the amount of energy and the effort that your team plays with is always fascinating to me. And again, to your point, the quality of shot that your team takes is always very, very high, always fascinating to me. So it is not, as you said, it's not run and gun. It is just prioritizing, limiting your opponent to good shots and then getting a great shot for you. That's why your field goal percentage is number one in the country. And I want to get you out of here on a couple more questions. Be respectful of your time. You right now, when I look at your stats, you're playing multiple guys more than 15 minutes a game. I think you're playing 9 guys more than 15 minutes a game, and you've got guys that have played in at least 10 games out of your 12 so far. Does playing time and a player's ability or their scoring, like in your system, are you ever concerned with like the transfer portal on the other side of the season? Or do you work really hard? How do you work really hard to manage that? Because you said you're old school. It's a lot different now, right? There's a lot of things to navigate. So I'm curious.
Well, I mean, 2 years ago, we had an incredible season. We went undefeated and won the national championship. And I still remember in the locker room, the players were so happy, and so I was too. And one of the guys yelled, "And we're coming back and doing it again next year." And I just paused for a minute, and I thought, we got 4 starters back off this team. We're going to bring in a couple of good recruits with them. There's a pretty good chance we're going to be back here next year. We're going to be good. 2 weeks later, those 4 starters were gone. And none of them had any, maybe one of them, but the other 3 had no thought of leaving Nova Southeastern. But, money and opportunities that they were afforded, which I don't blame them one bit. I'm still close to them. Obviously, R.J. Sunahara went to Georgia. He's back with me. Dallas Graziani to Stanford. He's back. Kobe Rogers is now at Louisville, and Jonathan Pierre is doing well at D1. So I wasn't mad at anybody. I understood it. It is the way it works today, and I would have done probably the same thing if I was in their position. But it hit me then, wow, you have that kind of success in Division II, you're going to lose your players.
Right.
Last year, we're in the national championship game, but it was a different type of team. We had some seniors, 4 or 5 seniors that were playing a lot of minutes that didn't have eligibility passed this year. Shane Hunter would have gone to a D1, I'm sure, but he used up his eligibility. And we had a team of no stars, basically. We played 10 guys. We platooned 5 and 5. We weren't quite as susceptible to a Division I jumping in and saying we want this player. MJ Araldi might have been the one guy returning that maybe a Division I probably could have jumped on, but different type of team last year. But it has become an issue when a Division II and you have success, re-recruiting your own players has actually become an issue. I try to just ignore it. I try to say, let's just have the season that we're having. Let's do the very best we can. And afterwards, if a player comes to me with a scenario that maybe he might be better off somewhere else, then we're going to wish him good luck. It's the way of the world. I don't like it because personally, I really like our players beyond basketball players. I really like our guys. They're such good guys. And some of the guys that we've lost, I've hated to see them go as basketball players. I've kind of hated to see them go because I just liked them. I like being around them.
Right.
But we've managed to find likable guys that come in and take their place. So it's the nature of the business now. It's frustrating. You're seeing older coaches drop off the cliff here. Look at the ACC, what's happened to the coaches of the ACC the last 3 or 4 years, saying, not my style, and I get that, but it is probably the future of the business.
Well, Coach, whatever the future of the business is, continued success to you. Thank you for joining the Small College Basketball Podcast today. Good luck with your tip-off against Eckerd. And Brian Galowski, I've known Brian for a long time. He's an upstate New York guy, so he will be empathetic of 32 degrees and snow while you're out playing pickleball.
All right, Chris. Good talking to you, buddy.
Thanks, Coach. Take care.
You too.
Rolling on today's Small College Basketball Podcast, our second interview. Please welcome Coach Brett Ballard from Washburn University. Coach, this is the second time we've gotten to talk. We had you on a while ago during COVID when we were just doing Division II. Now we're expanded to the Small College Basketball Podcast, but it's a pleasure to have you on. Always enjoy catching up. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, Chris, I appreciate the opportunity and appreciate what you do to promote, all of college basketball, but especially the Division II level. We really appreciate what you do to put, us out there and advocate for us and allowing people to kind of peek behind the curtain at how good and how talented and the level of basketball at this level in Division II. So we appreciate you and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Really excited to have this conversation. You were a great interview a couple of years ago and been looking forward to it now for a couple of days. I want to start by peeling back the curtain and talking about the MIAA because it's one of the strongest conferences in the country in Division II, if not the strongest annually, in what is arguably the strongest region in the country in Division II. There was a big change in the MIAA in the offseason with the departure of Coach Ben McCollum from Northwest Missouri State. Obviously had tremendous success that you're aware of. And as you're going through the offseason, as you're looking forward to this year, obviously have a good team coming back. But was there ever a moment where you're constructing your schedule, your roster, and you're looking like, hey, this is our moment, this is our opportunity at Washburn, like now is our time?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of great points. We got some momentum towards the end of last year, and we had a fairly young roster. We were playing some younger guys, but had some success in the league last year. And I really felt, in January and February of last year that team had taken some big steps. And if we could bring those guys back, which fortunately we were able to do, that this year's team would have a chance to be very good. And we added a really good transfer too in Jacob Hanna, he's helped us tremendously. But I thought going in the offseason, just meet with our staff that we had a chance. Obviously, the league's always been great. I think everybody thinks that their league's the best league, and we're all biased. But if I'm not mistaken, this region in the last decade, and I could be wrong on this, I think we played in the national championship game 8 out of 10 and won it 6 or 7 of those out of this region, at the Division II level. And even if you go back the last 20 years and look at it, the number of times we've had a team, make a Final Four or play in a championship game, this region has probably proven itself to be the best in Division II, especially the last decade. And not that there's not other really good regions, but I thought this team would have a chance. I have a great deal of respect. You mentioned Ben. I have so much respect for him. He has elevated me as a coach. I actually went up there this summer to see him and learn from him. It was great to finally kind of peek behind his curtain because, for all those years we had battled and he wasn't going to give me many secrets, but I got to go up there and learn from him. And without question, losing a guy like that from your league impacts things. But I thought with the team we had, we could be good. And my message to our team, our very first team meeting in August was, hey, guys, I think that we have a chance. I think we will be kind of the hunted team. And so our message to this team this year, instead of being hunted, I wanted to hunt and be the hunters. And they've exceeded my expectations. But I did think with what we had coming back that we could have a very good year. And so far, these guys have been really committed, and it's been a lot of fun. the league's great every year. A lot of these teams will keep getting better. We have a lot of work to do, but I'm really proud of what our guys have accomplished so far.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Ben. He did a terrific job at Northwest Missouri State, and then obviously he's done a remarkable job at Drake right now. When I was covering the Hall of Fame Classic with John McCarthy, Ben would be in a press conference, and it's like a coaching clinic every time you're talking to him, whether it's in a press conference or on a podcast. It's like a coaching clinic. He's very bright, very bright, very bright.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, the youth that you had last year, adding one transfer. Did you feel like in the offseason, like get young, stay young, or get young, get old? Like, did you feel like you're going to lose some guys? Did you know they were all coming back? Like, part of the change in college athletics now is re-recruiting your team. Like, that's your number one priority. Did you
Yeah.
feel really confident going into your summer
Yeah. You're never sure. And
without giving too much away? Obviously, I
yeah,
know that,
no, no, that's a great question. You're never, it's definitely a different time, and you can have a really good year. Guys can play really well. You can feel like you built really good relations with those guys, and you can still lose them. I mean, that happens. But I did feel like with the guys that we had, everybody seemed to be in a good place. Just from a basketball perspective, socially here at Washburn, academically at Washburn, they were all doing well. They like each other on and off the court. So I felt like we were in a really good place going in the offseason. And the guys were hungry to come back and see what we could accomplish. Again, we took a really good transfer in Hannah. We've always tried to kind of build it from the ground up here with high school guys. That's been our model, and we've been pretty successful with that. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Not that we haven't taken transfers or won't take transfers, but we've been fortunate that we have really good high school basketball in this area, really good AAU basketball in this area. So we recruit Kansas City, Wichita, Omaha really hard, all within 2 or 3 hours of our campus or less. And we've been able to get some very good players and then have them come in and buy in and develop them. And so that model's worked well for us. This group again, just as the guys that continue to get better. I think it's one thing you're young, but if they don't get better, then that doesn't matter. But these guys have all worked to improve individually. And then the last part of that has to work is we returned a lot of good players. And how are all the pieces going to work? I think we're all trying to figure that out. How do you make the puzzle pieces fit? And I just talked to our guys about this the other day. We've got some guys here that aren't playing necessarily a ton of minutes that would probably start at a lot of other schools. But we've been fortunate they bought into their role, especially some of our younger guys, and how they can help the team. And the fact that these guys are so unselfish has really accelerated our success without question.
Yeah, and you are right now sitting at the top of your league, the MIAA. You're 3-0, number 2 team in the country, one of 5 undefeated teams in the nation at the moment. How is your team? You mentioned a little bit of their youth from last year and now maturing, but how are they managing the expectations as you go through the season?
It's funny when you're a player. I don't know that you think or worry about that as much as we do as adults, or as much as maybe it's talked about outside of the locker room. I know, when I played at University of Kansas my senior year, we went 16-0 in the Big 12. We were ranked in the top 2 or 3 most of the year. And even as we got down to the end of the year, we had a chance to go undefeated in the Big 12. And as a locker room, I don't think we ever felt any pressure on that. I think that we had confidence that we could go do it, but I don't think sometimes when you're younger, you think about that as much, and you just kind of take it day by day, and you expect to go win the next game. But I have tried to we have tried to implement the mindset that, like, first of all, the league is terrific, great coaches and players. We respect that. Our guys respect that and understand that. With what we've accomplished, and some of it's the success we've had before this year. We've been consistently one of the top teams in this league, that, when we play a team, it's going to be a big game. And so we have to understand we're probably going to get other teams' best shots. And especially now, being ranked as high as we are, we have to, prepare ourselves for that. And so, again, we talk about that, and then you try to practice in a way that prepares your guys to go to games and play at a level that no matter how hard the other team plays or how into the game they are, that you've already practiced those situations so your guys are comfortable in that environment. And it doesn't always. Listen, there'll be some challenges. There's always ebbs and flows to the season, but I feel like these guys have been really committed day by day just to get better. I sometimes, I'll lead practice and I got to coach them, but they do such a great job of holding each other accountable that I almost feel like I'm stealing money some days because they are so turned up and energetic that I'm searching for ways that I gotta coach them harder at times, and so that's been fun. Now, listen, that part of it's we're winning, and you're in a rhythm and a flow, and we've got to be careful not to get comfortable. But just as far as their commitment level and how they bought in and the intensity and the sense of urgency they have, it's been a lot of fun.
And you mentioned that sense of urgency, you mentioned the commitment level, and you mentioned the flow that your team was in. You've been on, basically a 2-week break now. Last game is December 21st. You tip off later today, January 4th. You've had a holiday break. You've had New Year. How has that 2-week stretch been for your team? Like, where do you feel your team's at in the moment?
Well, I love the Division II mandatory week off. I think that's phenomenal for everybody. I think that, it'd be great for all levels to have that. Division I, it would be hard because TV games and they probably will never do it because of the TV money they can make and all that. But I think it's really beneficial for everybody, for coaches and players, mentally and physically, just to have that break. I think that, it's a good time for our players and for coaches to spend time with family and really recharge and reset. I felt like our teams have always gotten better after Christmas. We tend to play our best basketball in January and February and March. And so I feel like we have a pretty good model to try to keep getting better and come back and hit the ground running. But it is a little concerning. I'm watching some of these college football bowl games, and some of these teams that have had a lot of time off look a little, at times a little rusty, and you worry about that, especially coming out of the gates. But I think it's been a good opportunity for our guys to physically and mentally recharge. We've had some good practices coming back. The guys seem to be, feeling good and excited about being back in the gym. We kind of look at this segment as a 2-month period where we got to January, February grind through this conference season, and we've really got 2 months to keep getting better. And then, once you get to March, we want to keep getting better then too. But I always feel like if you're playing basketball in March, it's like gold. So, kind of a message is let's lock in these next 2 months and see how much better we can get.
And you mentioned, peaking at the right time. Your teams have been able to play well into January, into February and March. What do you attribute to that to? What's that model for Washburn?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably no different than what everybody else is trying to do. We just try to have consistency on a daily basis. We try not to get too high or too low and just consistently come in with the right mindset and attitude and energy level and get better day by day. I think that starts with, my staff consistently coming in and how do we pour into our players. We really try to invest into our guys here on and off the court. And so they understand how committed we are to them. I think hopefully our players see how consistent our effort and our approach and our habits are as a staff. And then, we just try to model that through our culture of every day, just coming in and getting better. And I know it's not rocket science. That's what every program is trying to do. But, to have guys that consistently do that, we work on that. I think part of that starts, Chris, in how we recruit. I think one of the reasons we've had success here, a big reason we've had success here, is we've had really good players. And I'm not just talking about the skill level basketball part of it. I'm just talking about the right people that we bring into our locker room. I'll have coaches or guys or people reach out all the time. Hey, you should look at this kid, and you'll see film on a kid, and that'll tell you a part of the story. And that's important. They've got to have a certain level of skill. But for us, it's really about doing the homework on what type of kid are they? What type of teammate are they? Are they competitive? Do they love basketball? You'd be amazed how many guys, now don't necessarily love basketball. They just kind of play it to play. So, and then we don't always get this perfect. And I know everybody's kind of trying to find the same type of guy. So you got to recruit. Those guys are hard to get, but I think that helps us that you have guys, hopefully that you recruited that are competitive, that want to keep getting better. And our guys. Listen, the other thing I'd say too, we had a 3.41 team GPA in the fall semester, and I don't know about you, Chris. I wasn't. Listen, I was a decent student, but 3.41 wasn't on my. Too many times was not on my transcript, so they did not get that from their coach. But these guys, and we got a lot of guys in business and taking real classes. I was also taking some underwater basket weaving and some things. Yeah. These guys are taking real classes. We've had 86 hours of community service so far this fall. So I think that helps too. The culture is right off the court. Listen, it doesn't always translate. Sometimes you can have guys that aren't great academically that are really good basketball players. But I do think in this situation, it's really translated to guys being committed in everything they do. And hopefully we can continue to grow and get better.
Yeah, what we found at Lincoln, and I know Josh still finds this when, being at St. Louis and being at Indiana State, but very rarely would you have a team that's, a high achieving team, top 25, top 10, and really poor in the classroom. Typically those things all go together, and it's part of what your program is. And you've got you talked about skill. The one thing I think is maddening sometimes as a high school coach, you want to play at the next level. Well, everybody's good. Everybody's good enough.
Yeah.
Everybody's talented enough. What is the skill that you're going to bring to a team that's looking for you? And do you have the intangibles? Are you a good kid? Are you eligible? Because if you're not eligible, you're not going to get recruited. Yeah. Right? Talent is across the board. And you guys have some terrifically talented players. I want to talk about Braden Shorter, 17 points per game. You've got a bunch of guys, I think 4 players averaging double figures. So I want, before you tip off later today against Emporia State, starting the league back up, let's talk about your team a little bit and start with Braden.
Yeah. Braden's been great. Braden's a sophomore for us. Again, just a tough, competitive kid, energetic kid, young man, and can really, really shoot it. Has a chance to be the best shooter I've ever coached, and I've had some good ones here.
That's saying quite a bit. You've had some really good shooters at Washburn.
And Tyler Guyman and Jalen Lewis. And I told our guys, I think I've coached 3 of the top 4 all-time leading three-point shooters at Washburn, and I think between Shorter and Jack Batcher, I think those guys will both be in the top 5 as well. But Shorter has improved. He comes in early, stays late, can shoot the heck out of the ball, has gotten better defensively. Our guys do a good job of getting him looks. Shorter's been great. Jack Batcher's been really good. Jack's a sophomore as well, point guard, second or third leading scorer, whatever it is, but assist to turnover ratio is phenomenal. Runs our team, kind of the head of our snake, and sets the tone for us. And then obviously, 2 other guys that have been really good, and Andrew Orr. And Andrew is a senior, 5-man for us, has played a lot of minutes, played in a lot of big games for us, just consistent, can go get you, 15 to 17 on any given night. Defensively, he's gotten so much better. He's big, he's physical, he's strong. And Andrew, we feel like is one of, if not the best, 5-man in the MIAA. And then the last guy, that's really been, 2 other guys I really need to mention is Jacob Hanna, the transfer from Illinois Springfield. Jacob's been phenomenal. He's shot 93 free throws, I think, so far this year. So he does a great job of getting to the line. His rebound numbers are good, averaging whatever it is, 15 points a game. Jacob's an elite defender too. So and listen, as a 1-year guy, that's hard. coming in, new system, new philosophy, a lot of new verbiage, a lot of new things thrown at you. He is a sponge and just dove in, has 2 feet in the circle, wants to learn, wants to get better, and has been terrific. And then the other guy that starts for us and just does everything for us is Mike Keegan. Mike's been here 5 years. I'm sure people in the league, he feels like one of those guys that has been.
It was like
here.
Barry Ellis.
Yeah, exactly, exactly like that. And Mike's just a Swiss Army knife for us. He's great at defensively, slasher, cutter. Really taking a step defensively this year. We're playing a little more aggressive style defensively, and he's really thrived in that. So Mike's been awesome. But with our starting five, I think we got a lot of guys that can go get double-figure points, which is nice because I think it makes it hard to guard us.
And it looks like you're playing 7, almost 8 guys a game. You have 8 guys playing, 10 plus minutes a game right on there. So your rotation seems to be deep enough to carry you through the challenges of the MIAA.
Yeah, well, Brady Christensen's not starting this year, started last year, and he's started off the bench. And then Sam Ungashek was, honorable mention all league. He's been hurt.
Okay.
Sam's played just in a couple games now. He had knee surgery in the offseason, and so he's just now coming back. He was honorable mention all MIAA. He'll come off the bench for us this year, but I love the spark plug that he can give us just as far as another attacking guard. And then, we got a freshman big that's going to be really good, Dylan Clausen. Dylan is playing behind Andrew Orr, so he's not playing a ton of minutes, but he does come in and give us really quality minutes. And when you talk about a guy that has a high ceiling, he's got a chance to be the best big I've ever coached, and that's saying a lot between Brady Skeens and Andrew Orr and Johnny Clausen and some of the guys I've had. But I like our depth. Again, the pieces fit, and these guys have really been complimenting you. They really want the other guy to be successful, and that helps. And again, winning helps that. So if we keep winning, that's going to help. But when you don't win, that makes it more challenging. But I think that these guys totally want the other guy to be successful. So it's really, really fun to be around.
Yeah, and at the moment, you guys are out rebounding your opponents on average. You're positive in the assist to turnover ratio, and your team can really shoot it. Like as a group, you're shooting over 50% from the field, and then you're 38% from 3. So as a group, you've got a lot of weapons.
Yeah, I think that the offensive side of the ball has been good. Our league is. Anybody that falls in MIAA, it's a little bit of a Big Ten style. I mean, you try to score against Fort Hays and Central Missouri, and I mean, it's low possession. There's some grind. So, sometimes our offensive numbers in this league don't stand out as much as some of the other D2 leagues because the pace isn't there. We try to dictate the pace as much as we can. Offensively, we've done a pretty good job. I still think there's some steps we can take, but we share it. And again, just with the multiple guys that can score it, I do think that that's made us, difficult to scout and guard this year.
Undefeated at the moment. You've been ranked inside of the top 10 every week so far this year. It seems like you've got a lot of pieces that fit. The puzzle comes together, right? You don't just have a bunch of talented dudes. You've got a talented team. And as a graduate of Kansas, you mentioned playing on some really successful teams. You've been associated with a lot of successful teams as well at Washburn in your coaching career. Where do you see this team? Where does this team rank for you?
Yeah, I think this team, we've had some really good teams, but I think this team has a chance to really go make a run at it. And what I mean at that is, win it in my, I tell our guys, if you can win an MIAA conference regular season, that means you've had an incredible year. And obviously, if you win the league, that means you're going to get in the region. I think probably the proudest thing I have been about at Washburn is, we made the NCAA tournament 4 out of 7 years. And you understand this, Chris, but if you follow it, if you make the top 8 in this region, you have had an incredible year. And I know that people on the outside don't necessarily understand that and like, okay, you made the tournament. Well, we made the tournament. We made the top 8 in this region, which means you're probably one of the top 40 teams in the country. And so again, our goals are to win the league and then see what happens beyond that. But I really truly think if we can stay healthy, if these guys will keep buying in and we can keep getting better, I do think this team has a chance to make a run at it. Now, I respect how hard that is. I respect how good our league is, how good our region is. Those Northern Sun teams are really good. There's some very, very good teams up there. I mean, our region in general is good. You don't just show up and make that happen. But with this group I have and how committed they've been and mentally where they're at, and from a talent and how the pieces fit, I do have a level of confidence with this group that we can have a special year.
Well, that's awesome. That's terrific to hear. I want to be respectful of your time. And thank you for joining the Small College Basketball Podcast. Been a pleasure to have you on today. Good luck going forward this season. We'll continue to watch Washburn University and Coach Brett Ballard.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate all you do, man.
You got it. Small College Basketball Podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks to celebrate more of the coaches, the players, the programs of small college basketball. Happy New Year.